hidden in the mountains on the border with Vietnam, is one of China's best-kept treasures. This is the story of an evolutionary enigma, a living fossil that has captivated us for over a century, the giant panda. Today we are going to take you on a surprising journey into the heart of the giant panda's natural habitat and reveal what we can do to save this extraordinary and complex animal. This rare creature receives star treatment around the world, a measure of how much the panda has captured public imagination. An icon of rapidly expanding China, the panda has also become the symbol of the world's endangered species. Known as Papa Panda, Professor Pan Wenxi has spent 15 years of his life among the wild pandas, observing and studying their behavior. Today he's returning to panda territory to evaluate the future prospects of the wild panda. In the heart of Sichuan, we followed the work of scientists and caregivers in a breeding center. They work night and day to guarantee the panda's survival. This is the story of a fragile world, a millennial treasure that has yet to reveal all of its secrets. On May 12, 2008, an earthquake of magnitude 8.3 on the Richter scale struck the Sichuan region in western China. In 3 months, so did they. And since then, century after century, the territory of the giant pandas has only declined. If deforestation continues at its present rate, the panda will soon join the long list of extinct species. In the 1980s, Pan Wenxi, a professor at the University of Beijing, was the first to sound the alarm. In order to unravel the mystery of the giant pandas and to find ways to better protect them, Wenxi decided to travel to their last refuge. He spent 17 years in the mountains of Kinling. Day after day, he earned the trust of the small population of wild pandas, growing closer to them. He was even able to witness a birth. He named the female Jiao Jiao and her baby Xiwang, Hope. Jiao Jiao became his favorite panda. He lived by her side for the next 10 years and was present for 6 births. Throughout China, Professor Pan became known and respected as Papa Panda. Thousands of kilometers south of Kinling and Chengdu, we're back with Professor Pan. Today, he is 74 years old and has retired to the Vietnamese border, far from the pandas. He is now observing and working to protect the white-headed langur, a species even more endangered than the giant panda, but much less discussed in the media. But one cannot forget an animal as endearing as the panda. Every night, he works on a new book that gathers the results of his 17 years of research in Kinling.
这是娇娇哈，娇娇，和他的这个应该是虎子，第一个孩子，保护自然恢复，总共经历了27年，27年，就是熊猫所生活的地区啊，是个孤岛状的，左一块右一块哈，左一块右一块。那么它们之间呢，现在没有人砍伐了，但是仍然有农耕地，就是农。
In the morning, we find Professor Pan in the company of another endangered species. They're called the pandas of the sea.
我03年就过来，04年看见青州的工业发展规划，就把这个工业区放在这个白海豚的。我跳到一天风浪来了，可是我没有注意，我跳到海里头，游到海中间，风浪大的没办法，我怎么也游不回来，而且风越来越大，我以为我自己死定了，我就把手这个伸开。把头在水面上，这个时候我的腿就被东西拖住了，我感到非常奇怪，我的老同学把我拉上去了，然后这时候看见2条海豚，粉红色的海豚，哇，不断的游过来游过去，还很高兴跳起来。那边。
Although the professor might think of his days in Kinling as over, it's not easy to forget the story that linked him to the pandas. Thousands of kilometers away, one of his former trackers suddenly needs his help. One of the historic sites where wild pandas could still be observed has just been devastated by torrential rains. An entire face of the mountain collapsed, in the same location where Pan had once conducted his research. Since then, no one has seen the pandas. Where are they? Did they survive? The professor decides to travel there in person to survey the damages. He reunites his old team of trackers. They set out on an expedition to assess the situation and find out if the wild pandas are still in the region. There is much at stake. Since the catastrophe, no one has laid eyes on the panda. It's the middle of March, mating season. Now is when the pandas descend into the valleys in search of young bamboo shoots. It's the best time to spot the pandas and make contact with them. It is also in March that Pan was able to take his best photographs during his research. During the rest of the year, pandas are solitary, shy of humans, and discreet. One can walk right past them without realizing it. It's the first day of the expedition, the first day in the reserve since the disaster. Today, Pan is too old to explore the steep slopes of Kinling. He stays back at the base camp so as to not slow down the team of trackers. They will be his eyes and ears and bring him daily reports of their observations. After hours of walking, they are alarmed by what they see where numerous pandas once made their nests. Dead animals are an indication of the devastation of what were once bamboo forests.
我们家里也全部是进了水了。去年一直到现在，我也没有上来看一看这个，上面这个熊猫这个栖息地这个情况。我也很想上来了解了解，究竟他们现在是怎么样的。确实，我今天一上来看到这个情况的话，上面这个熊猫这一片的栖息地啊，好多都被水淹没了。看来是对熊猫在这一块活动的话，影响很大。
前几年的不让那里看得光的，熊猫也喜欢跟到路上走。
The day has not been fruitful. They have just found a few marks on a tree, sadly too old to be of any use. A lone takin is disturbed in his sleep by the team. Night falls on the valley, which remains tragically silent. Pan remembers how long it took him to find the pandas and hopes that his team's patience will soon pay off. Usually, around this time of year, The valley echoes with the calls of females and the sounds of males fighting. Each panda carefully marks trees, leaving behind a strong odor that serves as an identity card. Males converge on the territory of a female in heat and fight violently to win her favor. Meanwhile, the female sits perched on a tree, awaiting the outcome of the battle. The loser of the fight must now retreat and let the dominant male ensure his offspring. Far from the steep slopes of Qinling, the Chengdu Center is preparing to send a welcome party fit for a head of state is awaiting our ambassadors. After spending 12 hours in a chartered flight, Huan Huan and Yuan Zi arrive at their final destination, the Zoo Park de Beauval in France. The first panda to leave China was sent, but after its death, to the Paris Museum in 1869. It was a sensation, and for 60 years, it whet the appetites of every big game hunter who saw it. It was Ruth Harkness who, in December 1936, brought the first living panda to the United States, naming it Su. Sometimes female pandas give birth to twins. In nature, sadly, the weaker of the two rarely survives. But at Chengdu, it is immediately cared for by the veterinarians. It's been several days since our team began exploring the Qinling Mountains for signs of panda life. Xian oversees the operation. This young tracker was born in these mountains. He grew up following his father and Professor Pan on their expeditions. He knows every nook and cranny. On an unexplored slope, the first signs of life begin to appear. Suddenly, in the trees above the bamboo, the trackers notice the presence of snub-nosed monkeys. They have golden fur and are found only in the mountains near Tibet. These monkeys often share a territory with giant pandas. The members of the team suddenly feel like they're on the right track. Then Hu Wanzin makes a new discovery, panda droppings. They're a few weeks old, but it's the first sign that pandas have returned to the valley. At the foot of a large rock, he notices a strange marking on a tree.
这个吃了的，你看吃的。
这吃的流光的。
这鸟这牙印多的。
刚才有点毛，这啥都不会，只能看。新选的，这是新选的。
这个公熊猫，比较凶残的一个公熊猫。
哎，对，这是熊猫猫。
Now that the zone has been identified, the trackers try a new technique. They play recordings of mating calls, hoping to lure nearby males.
那是熊猫叫唤的。哦，
咱们在下面听到的声音，大概就在这个位置。
好，你在上面有情况吗？听得到吧？
听得到，听得到。
我们爬到这梁上来了，好像熊猫的身是越来越远，身越来越小，好像给跑远了啊。
这看过去不是个对面一弄青树，看对么？看太阳一照，看母熊猫在树上呢，看又上去又爬上去，它大镜头能拍到，在对面啊，我跟你说那个阳光在啥地方啊？就是从这地方看过去，在对面的那个山坡，有不是一个小山梁吗？这样下来，和这个前面那条沟交界的，好像这么粗的那个树一丛子。那个母熊猫在那个地方，刚才唰下来，又爬上去了，因为那个逆光嘛，它那个毛发亮。王鑫刚才看到了吗？
我看到了。
看真正爬得高死了，爬到个树尖尖上去了。
你下到沟里去，把估计恐怕那纯粹是逆光。
它那毛发亮。
左边下吗？从右边下。
右边。
我都听到你说话声音了，你都从这端下来的。
The team decides to relay their position to Professor Pan so that he may come join them. Once the team is reunited, Xian takes the professor to where they spotted the panda. Even if he doesn't witness them firsthand, his concerns about the disappearance of the pandas from the valley are finally lifted. Looking drawn after long days of walking, the professor can now return to the village.
濒危动物的一种人为性的一个给它一种想拯救它的一个帮助，不能就是说，假如说这个动物要灭绝了，我看着它就少了嘛，不可能嘛。我们人也要拉它一把，对不对？它确实面临着濒危的时候呢，我们必须得这种把它种群数量。
这个都江堰野放中心整个占地面积大概是2000亩左右，面积不算太大，可是的话，有些区域的话是比较接近于自然的一个环境。地基建设工程之后，我们现在已经有6只大熊猫已经先期入住了都江堰那个野放中心。当然，就是说因为在大熊猫上面争议总是很多的，不管是国内还是国外，总是在我们的所有的工作都是在伴随在争议声中成长的。但是的话，就是我对那个大熊猫，不管是那个野外保护还是圈养大熊猫的保护，我都持一个比较乐观的态度。
With the amount of babies born each year in the centers, China will soon be able to strengthen its wild populations. But the pandas also need enough space to live in peace. Thanks to the early recommendations of Professor Pan, there are today 70 natural reserves spread throughout the panda territory, providing more opportunities for them to meet and reproduce. Perhaps one day, a new generation, helped along by the hand of man, will return to repopulate these mountains and ensure the survival of this fragile species.